Hello, good afternoon from the Countess of Chester Hospital, where it emerged yesterday that a former neonatal nurse here at the hospital, Lucy Letby, had killed 7 babies. Well, jurors spent more than 110 hours weighing up 9 months of often harrowing evidence. But despite that evidence, Letby's true motivation remains in question. Just why did she do what she did? Well, joining me now to discuss the case is Consultant Forensic Psychiatrist Dr. 𝐏𝐬𝐲𝐜𝐡 Good to have you on the programme. Let's start with that question, shall we? Throughout this trial, it's been very hard to understand why Letby carried out these attacks. Can you tell us what your thoughts are on that? What on earth could her motivation have been?
Sure. Thank you for having me on, Jonathan. I think it might not ever be possible for us to know definitively because Lucy Letby has been so shut down about this case. She's not admitted it, she's not opened up. One thing that we can say is that it doesn't appear to be in the context of mental illness. So many of the people that I've assessed women who've killed children, sometimes their own babies, and it's almost always been in the context of delusional beliefs about those individuals. But that's not Lucy Letby. So if you take away mental illness, then what remains as possible motivations would be things like, power and control. So maybe she got some sort of pleasure from playing God, which was the case in 𝐏𝐬𝐲𝐜𝐡, another high-profile case. Or another explanation could be that she has some sort of vitriolic hatred or even jealousy towards these families and wanted to punish them. And finally, the last feasible explanation that I would have from my clinical experience is that she's somehow tied into the grieving process. She found some sort of thrill being part of all the excitement of it all. And I think that might explain to a degree why she was always present at these children's deaths, even sometimes when they weren't her own patients.
Yeah, just horrific, isn't it? And the prosecution put a lot of emphasis on those post-it notes where she appeared to admit her guilt, but the defence said that they were the ramblings of an innocent woman put under a huge amount of pressure. What's your take?
I suppose I can see the defence's angle in that we knew that Lucy Letby had a degree of anxiety and depression in the background, and people particularly with depression have what we call negative cognition, so they can feel guilt and shame even where it's not warranted. But we now know that Lucy Letby is in fact guilty, so to me this was a little glimpse inside her psyche. So even though what she did was absolutely horrific, I believe that a tiny part of her genuinely felt some sort of remorse or shame, even though it wasn't enough to stop her carrying out her heinous killings, and even though it wasn't enough to make her tell the truth during the trial.
We understand that she began her attacks in June 2015. It may have been earlier, of course, but that is what the prosecution alleged. And yet she'd been a nurse for a number of years before that. What is it that makes somebody switch from being apparently hardworking and dedicated to being a serial killer?
Again, it's really hard to know without assessing her in person and without her opening up. But I suspect what would have happened is that she would have harboured these kind of dark, murderous thoughts and thought about the thrill of being around the death of infants for a while, maybe for several years before she actually took the step. Because from her perspective, it's quite a scary step to take. And I think another element of this whole case is the fact that she kept getting away with it. So her actions initially weren't discovered, and even when they were discovered, the complaints from the other doctors weren't taken seriously. So I think this emboldened her. It made her think that there wasn't really any serious consequences to her actions. So from her warped perspective, there's no reason to stop trying to escalate getting that thrill.
Apologies that we don't have more time to discuss all of this, but thank you very much for your insight, Consultant Forensic Psychiatrist Dr. 𝐏𝐬𝐲𝐜𝐡. Well, as we know, Lucy Letby will be sentenced on Monday at Manchester Crown Court. I'll have plenty more for you at 2 o'clock. Right now, back to Leah.